Hi everyone, so we're just going to review today some things about our grammar, the types of sentences that we've been learning. And if you remember, there are 4 different types of sentences in the English language. We're just going to review those together. You do have notes that you created last week, but just in case you're unsure if you were on the right track, I wanted to go over some of the definitions with you and give you some examples so that you're really confident as you go into your grammar activity this week. So we're just going to start with simple sentences. Simple sentences are independent clauses. Oops, let me make a change here. So it's an independent clause that contains a subject and a predicate. Now, the subject is a noun of some sort. The predicate is what that noun is doing. And the important thing is, this independent clause makes sense all by itself. So let's add that on. So you'll see, as we look at some examples, that this is an independent clause that could stand alone. It's a complete thought. So for instance, James fell off his bicycle. Did I spell that right now? James fell off his bicycle. So you can see in this example that James is our subject. He's the one doing the action, and the action that he did was to fall. And what did he do? He fell off his bicycle. So that's our predicate. Okay, so we have a subject, we have a predicate. It makes sense all on its own. It's a simple sentence. A compound sentence is a little more developed. It's where we have 2 independent clauses. And we join them together, so that are joined together by, and we have 2 options here, either a coordinating conjunction. See how it's all coming together? All our grammar is going to start merging together to make a lot of sense. Either joined by a coordinating conjunction or a semicolon. Now, in English, it is acceptable to substitute a semicolon for a coordinating conjunction to complete this compound sentence. So there's 2 different ways we could write our thoughts. So I'm going to start with just the coordinating conjunction. So if I say, James fell off his bicycle, comma, and Mackenzie giggled. Oh, I spelled Mackenzie's name wrong. Let me fix that. Mackenzie. Yep, there we go. So James fell off his bicycle, comma, notice I used a comma and a fanboy. So we could put that in here. Comma with a fanboy's conjunction or a semicolon. Okay, so they have to be together. Now the alternative would be James fell off his bicycle, semicolon, Mackenzie giggled. She must have thought that was hilarious. So you can see they mean the same thing. They're of equal importance. There's no difference really in these sentences. The ideas stay exactly the same. We have the same independent clauses. The only thing that's changed is the punctuation and whether or not we're using a conjunction. Okay. So that's simple sentences and compound sentences. Complex sentences bring back the dependent clause. So buckle up, because this is where it gets a little more complex. So in a complex sentence, we have 1 independent clause joined by a dependent clause using a subordinating conjunction. Okay, so if you remember from last week we talked about subordinating conjunctions. We talked about sometimes they are awubis words. Nope, I did that wrong. Awubis words. Okay, so you could think of those are the most common ones, but there are others. So we need to think about that. So for example, if we wanted to set this up using our examples, we could say Mackenzie giggled when James fell off his bicycle. Or we could flip it and we could say the reverse. But remember, when we move that awubis word, when, to the beginning of the sentence, now we've got to put a comma after our dependent clause. So you'll notice here we've got Mackenzie giggled is still an independent clause. James fell off his bicycle, still an independent clause, but it's become dependent here because when is added. So now we have an independent plus a dependent. I just noticed my typo. So Mackenzie giggled, independent, when James fell off his bicycle, dependent. Now again, we can flip it because we know it is a dependent clause, so it could go in the beginning or it could go at the end. So we could say when James fell off his bicycle, Mackenzie giggled. Notice how when we do that, we add a comma, but the words, the use of all of our language, it means the same thing. It doesn't matter which order we put it in because both of those clauses have stayed the same. We've just changed the order that we present them in, okay? The last thing that we learned, the last type of sentence, is a compound complex sentence, and this is a mashup of those two kinds. So we had compound sentences and complex sentences. Compound complex puts them together to make even more sentence variety. So in a compound complex sentence, we have two independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction and a dependent clause joined by a subordinating conjunction. So what that means is we've taken both types and put them together. Let me give you an example. I think it'll make a lot more sense when you see it in action. So if we think about it this way, we're going to make first our complex sentence. Okay, so James fell off while, that's an awubis word, while he was riding his bicycle. Okay, notice how I could stop there and I'd have my complex sentence. But I need to add in my compound sentence. So I need to add a coordinating conjunction, a fanboy word, and then I also need an independent clause. So I'm going to add, and Mackenzie giggled. Okay, so James fell off while he was riding his bicycle, and Mackenzie giggled. Now, notice how I can change this in the order, again, just like I did here, because I have a dependent clause, I could move my dependent clause to the very beginning. So James fell off is independent, Mackenzie giggled is independent, but while he was riding his bicycle is dependent. So I can move that around. So I'm going to bring that to the front, and I'm going to say, while he was riding his bicycle, James fell off, comma, and Mackenzie giggled. Notice how I've just moved that dependent clause up to the front, but I've left my compound sentence now at the end. So I've moved the complex part to the beginning and left the compound part at the end. I hope that this helps you better understand these different sentence types, but if you have questions or concerns about this, please reach out to me. I will be conducting some small group work this week on types of sentences, so you're welcome to jump into that. But also, I'm available one-on-one, so shoot me an email if you have any confusion. Thanks, guys.